outlook. Then you have um, rejuvenation, exercise. All right. Then your viewpoint. You're spelling the word prevent now. Viewpoint. Then exercise. Then nutrition, and then time management, etc. So you want to make sure that you are getting where you need to go at this point in time. So the 7 keys, we just talk about them now. Remember, the goal is to respond to the stresses of life by making decisions and taking actions that prevent, minimize the harmful consequences, the stress, and create, maximize the positive results you stress through a balanced integration of the 7 keys. And so the 7 keys: one, P. We're spelling the word prevent now, the acronym. One, prayer and spiritual centering now. So you want to make sure that your life is centered around the spiritualness, right? Then you want to relax. That's key number 2, relaxation, right? Then number 3, exercise activity. You want to make sure you get into an exercise. You know, start something that you can manage. Don't do too much at one time, but make it consistent. 30 minutes workout in the morning or every time you have, do that. And of course, your viewpoint. Now, all of us have a worldview. All of us have viewpoint, and our viewpoints in life, they're based on our belief system, what we were taught spiritually and socially, what we were influenced by our peers. All these tend to contribute to our viewpoint in life. Everybody have a viewpoint. Everybody have a worldview. Everybody have their thinking. So it's important for you to have that. And of course, that contribute to your stress level now. So you find yourself in a stressful situation now, your worldview will influence that. And we're going to come to that now, where we look at stress inducing stressors and stress reducing. So all your viewpoint tends to determine if you are going to have a stress inducing situation or stress relieving situation. All right. Then, of course, you want to eat healthily. All right. You want to make sure you have a right nutrition. You want to make sure that you're eating properly, getting the right nutrients, the right enzymes, so that your body can be fed properly. And of course, neighborly love and loyalty, that's N. Make sure you can talk. Don't time to be by yourself now. Make sure you find someone you can talk to, somebody you can confide in. And that person doesn't necessarily have to be the person you live with. Find somebody who is a confidant, somebody who you trust to talk to, somebody who you trust will keep whatever says them secret and confidential. We need those kind of people in the world today. Right? And of course, friends, time management, organization, team. So you want to make sure that if you adhere to the 7 principles here, then you will do well as you go along. Right? Now, stress absorbers now. We started talking about it last week. We're going to continue. So we have 10 powerful stress reducing beliefs. All right. Number 1, I accept God as my spiritual parents who loves me. This love will be the basis for the value I place on myself and others, and will be the release point for all my fears, anxieties, and worries. So I'm going to accept God as my spiritual parents who loves me. So that's the first heavy duty stress observers you want to look at. Number 2, I will live by this narrative prayer. All right? Accept the things you can't change, leave them alone. Simple. Do what you can do, don't fight it. All right? Of course, you're going to live one day at a time. I will live one day at a time. Don't try to live 7 days at a time. You're going to crash. Live one day at a time. Now, stress observer number 4. I will accept personal responsibility for my behavior and emotions and will seek to influence them through wholesome thinking, beliefs, and attitude. So we want to make sure that we don't throw off our responsibility to somebody else. If we do something, let's just take responsibility. If it hurts us, even though it causes us pain and stress, accept the fact that you made the decision, you went the wrong way, so you end up in this area there. And so seek to find ways of working through that situation. Has got to help you. so you can avoid being in that again. So let's take responsibility for our action. Don't blame anybody else. And of course, we have this graphic, we had it last week and week before, our thoughts. All right. You interpret the events with a series of thoughts that continue to flow through your mind. So when you're going through a stressful situation now, your belief system or your worldview will determine how you will respond to what has happened. All right. It will determine if you want to fight or run. All right. So your belief system, that is very important. That's why I'm stressing that, because it's very important we understand that our belief system, what we were taught, whether at home, at school, whatever, all that tends to influence how we respond to the stresses of life. All right. And of course, at the world we here in the next session there, sees the positive, neutral, and negative events. So things that you hear or learn, it could be negative, it could be positive, it could be neutral. And all these tend to add to how you look at life. All right. Then of course your mood, your feelings are created by your thoughts and not the actual events. All right. So everything must be processed first before you can actually move into one direction or the other. So you want to keep that in mind. All right. And of course, belief, thoughts that assign meaning to the stresses. As we said before, your belief system now will determine the outcome of why you're stressed, how you deal with it, what you think you need to do. Your belief system influences your decision in terms of whether you want to change your behavior or you don't want to change your behavior, etc. So you want to make sure, and of course, you have the activating stressors, right? Then you have the consequences now. And the consequences has to do with the level of stress you're going to have afterwards. So you want to make sure that your whole goal now is to minimize the negative and to maximize the positive. So what is your local locus of control? Is it fake, luck, or chance? What it is? Is it something internal, external, powerful others? What it is that controls your mind? Is it something internal? Is it something external? Is it fate? Is it luck or chance? All right. Now, I hope that we're not thinking about everything happened by fate or luck or chance. God is the one in control. And because God is in control, we can trust Him. So, in spite of what you may hear from the outside shouldn't influence to the point where we forget God. But we must always go to God and ask God, where do I go? How do I move? How do I do this? Yes, the influence there are great, but how do I respond to the influence outside of there? All right? You make the call. When a potentially stressful event occurs in your life, remember, it ain't nothing till you call it something. And you can see the graphic there where the referee call what it is, right? Now, you make the call every time. I can't make the call for you. You find yourself in that situation now. You have to make the call as to where you go. But then your belief system and everything around you now, they're going to influence how you respond to what is happening. Again, the effects of the stress inducing beliefs. Now, as I said before, we have the effect of the stress inducing belief, SIB, all right? So you have the stresses A, right? And our thoughts now are going to enable the stresses now so that we have stress inducing belief. In other words, your belief system is going to influence you more into a more stressful situation. All right. So instead of you going from stress to eustress now, you're going from stress to distress. You don't want to find yourself in a more distressful situation. So you want to make sure your belief system is reducing the stress and not introducing more stress. All right. So that's what we just saying in the graphic there. Now, you need to look at the world from a bird's eye view. When you see things from a bird's eye view, you have a wider vision. You can see more. as opposed to a narrow view. When you're up there on a height, you tend to see far and wide more than when you're on a low plane. So practice to have a bird's eye view of what is happening. It's a wide angle. You know, like the eagle, it can be thousands of miles up there and can still see sharp way down below. All right. People as happy as they make up their minds to be, according to Abraham Lincoln. Happiness is a choice, according to Frank Marinette and Paula Merrier and the others. The happiness is a choice. Now, the benefits of choice to be happy, according to Breslow, you can be happy if you choose to. Now we say happy people and unhappy people. So happy people tend to have 100 of them there, and then the numbers that die 9 years. You see, happy people 100 die, but unhappy people 157 die. So you see, 57 more die when they're unhappy, but those who are happy die less. Those unhappy die more. So we need to be happy. Of course, our stress can come back. This is to remind us again, because I believe some of us might be going through some stress, you know. The sister Marlon talked about the fact that she go for the recording and she didn't get to because of whatever's happening, so you have to go back. So that creates some level of stress. But the fact that she is here with us in the program now meant that she has gotten home. She is able to log in and able to talk. So she has been able to manage a stressful situation now. So she's in one mind. She's not going mental. She's not going the other side. Right? And so it means therefore that we are coping, right? And we are taking steps to make sure that we minimize the negative and we maximize the positive. All right? Hardiness, the big three. All right? Control, challenge. All right? Now, Chinese compound word, danger, opportunity. So, in a crisis situation now, there is potential for distress or the opportunity for eustress. Now, every time there's a challenge, we should always seek to use that as an opportunity to do something positive, not negative. So that you turn something that is bad into something good. All right? So you have control, challenge, the commitment now. So after you have been challenged, or you have to commit yourself to do something. And that commitment now determine if it's going to be negative or positive. Stress observer number 4. I will accept personal responsibility for my behavior and emotions and will seek to influence them through some wholesome thinking, beliefs, and attitudes. All right. Now, the good weather factor. People who take personal responsibility for their own emotions and behavior, happiness and success, create their own internal good weather and carry it with them wherever they go. So, we determine by our belief system, we determine by our outlook in life how happy we're going to be, whether the weather outlook is good or it is gloomy, cloudy with a few scattered showers, or it's going to be hot like mud. We determine that because of a belief system. We determine our happiness. All right? And as one song where they say happiness is to know the Savior. That's why spiritually, if we turn to God and we give God our heart every day, first thing in the morning, that within itself creates a power for us to live, a power for us to cultivate the right attitude, a power for us to have a positive influence in our lives every day. Observe number 5. I choose to cultivate the attitude of gratitude every day and in every circumstance of life. So whatever you're going through, we have a sense of gratitude. Give thanks to God. Don't go around weeping and moping for everything. Give God thanks. Even though your head is hurting like mad, thank God for the pounding headache. He knows why. And even if you have to lay up in bed for a few days, thank God for the rest. God knows what He's doing when He permits things to happen. So let us not rush and complain, because these things only make matters worse. Let us accept the things we can change, and the things we cannot change, let us leave them alone. I think in the final analysis that gratitude and revenge are the most important factors governing our actions in everyday life. Upon them also chiefly depend our peace of mind, our feeling of security and insecurity, or fulfillment or frustration. In short, the extent to which we can make a success of life. So we can choose to be grateful, or we can choose to be revengeful, right? I would encourage us to choose to be grateful, not be revengeful. Grateful in spite of a bad situation, in spite of a negative situation, be grateful that you're still alive, right? Now we have a story of Paul and Silas. They were put in jail, they were flogged severely, and then they were put in stock, told to put in the innermost prison. And of course, you know what happened. The story says that they began singing and shouting, and God did what? God will leave them at midnight by his power. So even though you're going through the worst time, let us find time to be thankful in spite of sing and pray and shout and give God thanks in spite of, and that will lift your spirit. Though the fig tree does not bud, and there are no grapes on the vine, though the olive crop fails, and the fields produce no food, though there are no sheep in the pen, and no cattle in the stall, yet I will rejoice, and be joyful in the Lord. I'll be joyful in God who helped me. And that's an ancient Hebrew song, Habakkuk 3:17 and 18. The response, the Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing. Zephaniah 3:17. I have learned to be content wherever the circumstances. So the Apostle Paul now is saying, okay, I'm not worrying. I've learned to be content with whatever is happening to me. All right, circumstances. He said, I've worked much harder than my accusers, being in prison more frequently, being flogged more severely, and being exposed to death again and again. That's the Apostle Paul talking about his life. 5 times I received the 40 lashes minus one. So 5 times you get 39 lashes. 3 times I was beaten with a rod. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea. I have been constantly on the move. That's Apostle Paul. I've been dangerous from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my own countrymen, in danger from the Gentiles, in danger from in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger from false brothers. I've labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I've known hunger and thirst and have often gone without food. I've been cold and naked. This is the Apostle Paul talking about his life. I've learned to be content whatever circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do everything through him who gives me the strength. So the Apostle Paul is outlining his life. And instead of complaining and moping, he gave a history, but at the same time now, he's saying, look, hey, I'm grateful to God for all this. I'm thankful to God that I'm still alive. And he's contented to live in spite of his circumstances. So create your own gratitude zone by establishing high goals and lowering your expectations. So don't expect too much. Set your goals, but limit your expectations so that you do not get disappointed at the end. Goals, something worthwhile that you have committed to accomplish, a dream for which you have set a date to become a reality. But always
Pastor,
keeping right.
could you explain that one to me? Goals and expectation. What
Okay,
it means to your goals and your expectation.
you're going to set goals, yes, and you want to achieve the goals by a certain time in life. If I may say that women in particular, they like to set goals and keep a detailed record of what is happening. You know, they're in high school, they're not going to leave high school by age 16, then they want to go to university, they want to finish college by age 20, they want to get married, have the put the children by age 25, and they want to have their own home by this time and that time. So you're setting goals. But within this goal setting now, you have to limit your expectations so that you don't get disappointed if you don't reach the target. In other words, then if you don't get married at 20, but you get married at 25, do not hate yourself too much of that or be too disappointed. That's what it is. Yeah, you're going to set the goals, yes, but your expectation must not cause you to be more stressed, right? You must be balanced and also, yes, expect to achieve the goal, but if you don't achieve within a certain time frame, that's why I say the expectations must be realistic in terms of what is happening, what you're able to do, what you're able to accomplish. Right? So within your goal, you also want to make sure that yes, you're going to expect certain things to happen. What you expect to benefit, but in terms of pushing yourself too high, in other words, then yes, you want to get the benefits of certain things, but you must also recognize that don't put your expectation too high, right? All right. Now creating a gratitude zone. All right. So you have the high and the low. Right. Your goal is to have a eustress situation. In other words, you want to find yourself in the eustress zone, not in the distress zone. All right. So when you set the goals, yes, we told must aim high and expect to get reward as you go along. But the point is, do not push yourself too high so that if you don't achieve it, you get so disappointed you go into a distress situation. In other words, then what you're saying is that yes, you expect to get married or finish university, but if you don't get accomplished it within the 4 years that most average students accomplish it, do not get so disappointed as to find yourself in a distress situation. That's what we say. Yes, you must expect to achieve success, but at the same time, do it with a level of caution, knowing that at some time along the path, you may not achieve everything you wanted, but you will get it eventually, right? You will get it eventually, right? And so again, we see the graphics continue where you, instead of moping about something, change direction, maybe take a class or maybe do something, maybe get in the exercise program, do something to help you. I know sometimes we expect to get a certain job or promotion and it doesn't work out the way we want to. And so we find ourselves in a stressful situation. We start to get depressed because we think, well, we are trained for the job, we have the training, we have the qualifications, but then they're promoting somebody else ahead of me. You expect to get to that position, but you're not getting there for whatever reason. So you must find a way now to work through that and to make sure that you're not putting yourself up too high so that if the expectation is not realized within certain time now, you're gone into a free fall. That's what we're saying. So let us try to be gratitude, to have more gratitude, to give thanks more for what we can accomplish and what we not yet able to accomplish. Let us give God thanks till that one day we're going to accomplish it. All right. So we're going to set our goals and we're going to work towards them. All right. And you see, we have high, and you have the area of distress and eustress. All right. Then gratitude zone now. You have expectations, you have realization now. So even though you expect to get there, you have to also deal with the reality of you getting there. All right? There are some folks who will get to their goals in life faster than others. Yeah, they get to the goal faster than others. Not all of us will run alike. Not all horses are alike. So even though we have the expectations now, not all of us will achieve all the expectations. So we gotta still work it every day. And in the meantime, while you're waiting, occupy your mind with things that are positive. Occupy your mind with things that are positive. So you're always in a eustress area as opposed to being in a distress area. Stress of mistakes. I replace everything that happens to me in perspective. All right? Put everything into perspective. Think about what has happened and try to put everything together so you can see exactly what is happening with your life. Look at what has happened in the past, look at what happened in the present, and look at what anticipate what will happen tomorrow. So you're getting yourself in a frame of mind where you're seeing exactly what is happening. Sometimes you might not see it readily, but you know what's happening. Now, question asked, what you doing? You know, see this guy that he's trying to build a wall. See, you know what he's doing, and he's smiling about it. But do we all know what we're doing? Rating my stresses. Some successful stress managers rate their stresses in this way. If I get back home from the store or the items that I went specifically to get, or if every traffic light seems to turn red just as I get to it, when I'm late for work already, it's irritating. But if I um, catastrophize the situation, I create stress to myself. All of us can be familiar or all of us can identify with that. So those who live in the East now recognize that going to town or to work in the morning, you gotta move at least an hour ahead of time now because of the road work that is going on by the Civil Stadium and also by the Spruce gas station there. So I get caught in the traffic twice already in 2 weeks time because getting to from my home, which should normally take about less than half an hour from here to where I'm going, it's now it's a call in a snail's pace now. And so you find that you could either be positive about it or you could allow things to get worse by starting to shout and curse and quarrel. All right? So you determine how you will face these things. It helps to rate my problem with a very minor irritant rating of 1, or the worst thing I could imagine happened to me, such as getting worse from my doctor that I have 1 week to live at a rating of 10. Right? If I rate a traffic jam at 8, I am overreaching and creating stress. Overreacting, overreacting and creating stress. All right. So if you're going to rate everything from 1 to 10, 1 being minor to 10 being way out there, and then now you're going to put yourself at the 8 or 9, then you're creating more stress for yourself. Remember, the goal here is to release the negative and to maximize the positive. You have a point to make, madam? Keep my problem in perspective. 1, on a scale, no problem. 3, my problem. And 10, worst case scenario. So you're basically going to rate yourself now in terms of how are you going to manage your situation now. So you're keeping my problems in perspective. How high are you going to rate your problem? How low are you going to rate your problem? Again, no problem. Then you could talk about life in Auschwitz, where people are tortured and put in gas chambers, that kind of stuff. Then, of course, you have some more ads here. Due to the rector's illness, Wednesday's healing services will be discontinued until further notice. Remember in prayer the many who are sick of our church. This being Easter Sunday, we have asked Mrs. Lewis to come forward and lay an egg on the altar. The Scouts will hold their annual picnic on church ground. In case of rain, it will be held in the church hall. At the evening service tonight, the sermon topic will be, what is health? Come early and listen to our choir practice. Remember, these are just bloomers, things that are humorous. A beam supper will be held on Tuesday evening in the church hall. Music will follow. Stress observers number 7. I accept every event in my life as having some meaning. All right? So everything in life must have a meaning. It must have a lesson there for us. It must teach us something positive. We must see something positive in everything that happened to us. According to Dr. Viktor Frank, man's search for meaning. There is nothing in the world, I venture to say, that will so effectively help one to survive even the worst condition as the knowledge that there is a meaning in one's life. So everything that happens for a reason, right? So for you to be able to manage it, recognize that there's a meaning in everything. You may not see it right away, but if you wait, it will come. All right? So let me cite a clear-cut example. Once an elderly general practitioner consulted me because of his severe depression. He could not overcome the loss of his wife, who had died 2 years before, and whom he had loved above all else. Now, how could I help him? What should I tell him? Well, I refrained from telling him anything, but instead confronted him with the question, what would have happened, Doc, if you had died first and your wife would have had to survive you? Oh, he said, for her, this would have been terrible. How she would have suffered. So you see, the doctor now is confronted with a situation where the question that if one die first, what would be the benefit if this one go or this one go? All right? Whereupon I reply, you see, doc, such a suffering has been spared her. And it is you who have spared her this suffering. But now you have to pay for it by surviving and mourning her. He said no words, but shook my hand and calmly left my office. All right? So you have to put me into everything. Suffering ceases to be suffering in some way at the moment it finds a meaning. So after a while, you're wondering why you're suffering. By the time you start to find meaning now, the suffering ceases to end and you start to feel a sense of calm now and recognize there's some benefits even in the whole process. In all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. They believe that God works through, not necessarily causes all events of our lives can transform source of irritation into source of personal growth. So God works through everything. So even though sometimes even though God is not in the business of inflicting pain, God permits us to pass through difficulties because of life lessons that he wants us to learn. So we got to understand that carefully. Hold anger in, right? You can hold anger in, defend yourself, or play the blame game, blame somebody else. Remember, one of the relief busters we said is that you must accept responsibility. So when you're going to blame somebody, when you defend yourself, you're going to blame somebody now, you're not helping yourself, you're creating more conflict. You're creating more distress for yourself instead of stress. All right? Caught remarks, accusation, inconsistencies, blaming somebody else. These are the source of the irritation now. You want to make sure you get rid of the stresses. All right. So you're going to make sure that you don't do something to add to it. All right. Remember, we have stress-inducing beliefs and stress-reducing belief. So you want to make sure that your belief system is reducing the stress level and not increasing it. All right. God. Look at the pyramid. God. The source of irritation. Thank God for the irritation, no matter what, there's a purpose. All right? Thank God for the irritation, no matter what is the purpose. Identify possible causes. Did I in any way cause this? Do an introspection to yourself. Did I cause this on me? Then say, determine ultimate objective. What qualities does God want to develop in me? All right? So when you ask yourself these questions, right, it helps you to see through and to recognize that maybe I may have been the cause, or even if you're not the cause, you can have a pretty good idea as to what might be the cause, etc., so that you don't allow this thing to irritate you now. You want to move from a state of irritation now to a state where you're grateful, you're happy, and you're able to live through what is happening to you. Stress absorber number 8. I will heal my personal rights to God and will accept them back as gift at his discretion. All right. Defending personal right leads to conflict and stress. You don't always have to defend yourself. Let God defend you. All right. Here's a story by Paul Tormier, MD, healing of a person. Early one Sunday morning, my wife asked me to take the dog out. I did so, but I was protesting inwardly. My protest was the assertion of my right to sleep on a Sunday morning. There was also self-pity at having to get up. I went back to bed with these negative thoughts turning over in my mind. The result? I found it impossible to go back to sleep. And the fact that I couldn't get back to sleep again encouraged my negative thoughts and complaints. So what I mean? If I didn't get up, I would be still sleeping. Right? How to identify your stress-reducing beliefs? 1, analyze your self-talk. Work backwards from C to A, then work from A to B. All right? So you have the consequences now. You're going to go back to A, the stresses now. Look at what that causes stress. Look what is stressing. Is it your health? Then based on your belief system now, determine what the consequences should be. All right? So you have the stresses. So you go to C now. You see that you're having a problem now. Go back to A to see where the problem started. And now to B now to see if your belief system now is contributing to the consequences, whether they be negative or positive. That's what this is talking about right here. Right? Then of course you have the effects of the inducing belief thing, stress-inducing belief. The belief that tend to introduce more stress than relieve it. All right? So the stresses are enabling the beliefs. All right? And then you have induced stress, which are the consequences. But you want to make sure that you get to the point now where you move from the stress-inducing belief to the stress-reducing belief. Right? Challenge your stress-inducing belief. Get rid of them. Right? Replace your stress-inducing belief with stress-reducing belief system. So you want to make sure that you're always going after relieving the negatives and to maximizing the positives. He says, the story continues. At once, I realized that what was stopping me from sleeping was not my morning walk, but the complaining thoughts about it that I had allowed to develop in my mind. That's why sometimes when you have things in the mind, you can't sleep. Get a clear mind. Right? I saw that I should have gone back to bed to sleep long before if my inward complaints had not kept sleep at bay, that I was the victim of my own attitude and not of the circumstances. I went to sleep again at once. So when you recognize what is happening, when you take responsibility, now this guy was murmuring because yes, he go walk the dog, but inside he was eating up because he should have been still sleeping. And because he harbored those negative thoughts about the walking dog, he couldn't go back to sleep. I wonder what time it would have been. Right? So the stresses now, your belief system now is going to disable the stresses now so that you have reduced stress or reduced distress so that you're getting back to what I call eustress situation now. You want to be stress-free as much as possible. You won't get rid of all the stresses, but at least you're managing and you're able to live so you don't feel overwhelmed. How to heal rights. Identify your rights. Conflict often an indicator. Yield your rights to God. Accept rights back as gifts. Now, we're going to distinguish between rights and responsibilities. Personal rights. Always be treated fairly. Always be loved and respected. A long life for myself and my family. Be treated as I want to be treated. Others always keep their commitments to me. All right, etc. So you want to make sure everything's about you, your benefits, personal right. You're entitled to this, you're entitled to that, it's your right. But yield your rights to God prevents distress. Personal responsibilities. Live by my spiritual values. Self-care, physical, mental, spiritual. Protect others' rights. Do unto others. Care for my family. Fulfill my commitment or just them, etc. Fulfilling responsibility creates you stress. That's the goal, to get you stressed. Now, stress observer number 9. I will forgive those who hurt me, refusing to harbor the destructive spirit of resentment, bitterness, and revenge. So, folks, we've got to learn to forgive. Learn to forgive so we can be in a better frame of mind to cope with the stresses of life. He who cannot forgive breaks the bridge over which he must pass himself. For every man has need to be forgiven. That's by George Herbert. He who cannot forgive breaks the bridge over which he must pass himself. For every man has need to be forgiven. It's important for us to forgive. The Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, etc. Stress observer number 10. I will live by the golden rule. All right? And we all know what the golden rule is, right? In whatever you do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's the golden rule. All right? Then according to Dr. Carl Messenger, psychiatrist, founder of the Messenger Clinic for Mental Health, was once attending a professional conference. He was asked what you would advise a person to if he felt a nervous breakdown coming on. He might have expected reply, consult a psychiatrist, but instead he replied, I would counsel her to lock up her house, go across the railway track, find someone in need, and do something to help that person. All right? So here is now a person who finds himself in a distressful situation, and the doctor is saying, look, hey, close your house, go across the road, help somebody. And do you know when you help somebody, you also helping yourself? You release yourself a lot of stress. You feel good about yourself. Then we have Joseph. You know, the story of Joseph and his brothers. They sold him to slavery, right? And after many years now, they meet up again, and the brothers he confronted the brothers. They didn't recognize who he was, but after he built himself now, we know he took care of them and so on, and we know all the anxieties, you know. And we know he said, okay, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. God sent me here the game for me to provide for you, and so here I am now. The famine is real, food is scarce, but hey, you have a Joseph in Egypt now. Your brother is here. So he took care of his family now. That was left. He took care of all his family, he sent for his father, and making sure that everybody was taken care of, etc., etc. So sometimes you find yourself in a situation, you don't know where that will lead you. You may feel hurt about it, you may feel left out of a promotion, but look, God is working on your behalf. And if you have patience and you trust God, He will work things out for you in His time. All right? And so we want to make sure that we understand that God is here to help us. That verse is in there. So remember, the goal is to reach back to level of eustress, to minimize the negative and to maximize the positive. So I hope that we have learned something in these two presentations and that we will remember by God's grace to plan differently, plan how we're going to handle conflicts, plan how we're going to deal with stress, and to make sure that we are able to minimize the negative and to maximize the positive. Now, any question, anybody? Any comment anybody wants to give before we close? Hello?
First, I need to ask a question.
Yeah,
Give me a
great.
minute here, please. We talk about goals and expectations. What's the danger of a parent? And well, I know we spoke about the things that God guide us in life is based on what we would have learned as children from our parents, or even those around us. What's the danger of our parents setting those goals and expectations for us instead of us
The
doing it for ourselves?
parents can set goals, yes, but it must be in consultation with the child or the children. And also, as the child grows, he learns first from his experience certain value system. He starts to create in his mind his own worldview. And by the time he gets to school, he's learning from his teachers, he's learning from his peers, he's reading books. So things are changing. Now, some parents may expect, look, I want my son to be a doctor or my daughter to be a doctor because a lucrative assignment is something good. Now, the parents has to be careful as to how much they push what they prefer, right? Let the child make his or her mind up as to what they believe they need to do in life, right? And because many children will find themselves in a very stressful situation, become depressed because what? Mommy want me to do this and I prefer to do that. All right? Now, the expectations now, yes, you expect certain things, but you must also deal with the reality that your expectation and the child's expectation might be different. But there must be a working together. Some children will go along because they want to respect the parents, or they say, point blank, no mommy, no daddy, I prefer this. Right? And they prefer what they prefer based on their belief system now. Their belief system is based on what they've been taught by the parents, taught by their peers, taught by the teachers. So everything's come together now. So you have the external system, you have the internal, you have the environment. So everything is coming to play on what decision I make going forward. What expectations do I expect now? And yes, you must expect good things, but you must also recognize that along the way to getting a good thing, you may stumble, you may fall, you may have setback, but doesn't mean that you're not going to achieve your goal. But you must recognize that in achieve the goal, sometimes you might achieve it in the time frame you want to achieve it, or you may have to spend extra than what you expect to pay, but you will achieve your goal if you keep that goal in mind. But you must also realize that some of the expectations have to be lower depending on what is happening so that your disappointment is not greater than your success.
Another question with setting the expectations and goals. What about potential? What part potential plays in that?
Well, if you have the potential to do something, then it helps you more if the potential is there for you to do it. Suppose you're suppose you're somebody who is medically inclined, and in other words, then the field of medicine really piece you, then you want to be a nurse, a doctor, something. It means that your potential for being that is greater. Now you may have a setback, maybe parents don't have the finance to help you go to school, but you have the head to do it. So you may have to look at sponsor, look scholarship and so forth, right? So it works both ways so that some students, a lot of bright students, they have the potential, but they don't achieve it because what? They don't have the support, financial support and so on. Or they achieve because they have the backing, financial or otherwise. So it all depends on the situation. So the potential is there, but sometimes it may not be realized because lack of funding or lack of help. Maybe somebody might have the potential, but they need the person help. You have a student who is slow, and because the student is slow now, you think the student will achieve, but then if the student get the right tutoring and right help, the child will surpass everybody else and go on by business. Ben Carson too is a typical example. He's the butt of the class and the joke of the class. But his mother saw the potential in him and said, look, you know what? This is how you're going to adapt life going forward. And he followed mother's instructions and he achieved success. So somebody must be able to see the potential in you to help you sometimes. Not everybody have the self-motivation to achieve. So others have to help them to achieve that. But it's good to set goals, it's good to have expectations, but along the way, you must also recognize that the potential or lack of could determine if you're going to succeed and reach a goal or if expectations are going to be met.
Because Pastor, why I ask that, I know some children, the expectation or the goals, I should say, that they want to achieve something in life, but the discipline is not there. So they want to probably they want to be a doctor, because I'm looking at the opposite side. They want to become a doctor, but they're not disciplined with studying. They're not disciplined in doing their homework, or even discipline in understanding. They don't have the patience, but they have that as a goal. How would you speak to a child like that? Or
Well,
what would you
I
you
think
say?
that you'll have to work with the child and see if you get the child to settle down. Maybe the child needs some extra tutoring and so forth. And maybe the child recognize that, hey, yes, I want to be a doctor, but the child might not be somebody who can do well in sciences or the physics subjects and so on, or the chemistry. That is one of the biggest hindrance to a lot of people. They want to, but then they recognize that they're not good in certain areas, so they tend to not to pursue it as much as they should. Like for instance, like I always wanted to be a pilot, but I was just dead when it comes to maths. And knowing you don't know maths, it doesn't make sense to even try to apply to go to school because I mean, you must know maths to apply. Everything about figures, right? So you find sometimes you have a setback, or maybe the person is not self-motivated. Maybe the child is not self-motivated. Children who are not self-motivated tend to need help. And they tend to want to, but because they're not self-motivated now, they can't achieve what they want to achieve. They must have something within them that compel them to go forward. And sometimes it's good to observe a child and to take a child and to try to help the child. That's what I'm saying. Some children need more help than others. And it takes a listening eye to recognize that, okay, this child wants to be a doctor, but the child needs help in settling down. And so there have to be some level of personal approach to certain children if you're going to get them. They just need some guidance. And I think if they're guided in the right path, you talk with them and show them the different areas how they can achieve, then they move forward. Some people may have the excitement to be a doctor, but as they move on in school, they recognize, you know what? I'm not too sure I want to be a doctor again. You know, some folks want to be a nurse, but the idea they have to watch an open wound or to sick cut or blood running, that turn them off. So there are different things that they turn people off. All right. Some folks want to be a pilot, but to be up there 30,000 feet, then you see yourself doing that. Some people want to be a ship captain on a big ship, but when they hear about the high seas and how dangerous the sea can be at times, they say, all right, let me keep up the high seas. So there's various, there are different things. And of course, some people they're hyperactive, and maybe the hyperactive nature is causing the child not to settle down. And so the teacher or the parents must be able to see the kind of child they have or the children they have, the potential they have, and to know how to guide them in terms of what choice of career they might get or end up with, and so forth. Any more question, or then we'll ask the host to take charge, to give us the parting words. Well, thank you. Next session, we will focus on some other areas. And this is our last presentation in terms of directly with stress. But the other presentation still have some level of stress, but the emphasis would not be so much on the stress as it is now, right? So the next health presentation will be on a different area, not so much on the stress management per se, but it will have some level of stresses because in life there's always a stress factor, etc.